the studio, 20th Century Fox, they came here, sent their construction crew, and they dammed a certain area here and made this big pond that you see in the film.
That's the scene where, one of the scenes in it, where Gregory Peck almost drowns John Russell, isn't it?
Yeah.
Its amazing scenes were filmed in the most desolate, yet most fascinating locale in the world.
Hi, I'm Rob Word. Welcome to another special, A Word on Westerns. And this is very special because we're in a wonderful location, and that, of course, is Lone Pine, California, where a couple of my favorite films were shot. One of them, Yellow Sky, with Gregory Peck, Ann Baxter, Richard Widmark, John Russell, and a little 11-year-old kid was there when his dad, William Wellman, was shooting it. And he's with me right now. He's not 11 anymore. It's Bill Wellman Jr.
Thanks, Rob.
How does it feel to be back here?
I love it. You know, I never lose the enjoyment and everything that I went through because I'm the only little kid that was around. And the stars treated me in different ways. Some liked me and some obviously didn't want me around. At least that's the feelings that I got. Ann Baxter, the co-star of the film, she grabbed me and threw me on her lap when she was sitting in a director's chair, and I liked it.
Gregory Peck as a renegade who trades his soul for gold and buys it back for a girl.
Was he a tough guy, Gregory Peck?
He wasn't a tough guy in the sense of, you know, somebody who we know, Lee Marvin or somebody like that. No, but he was strong, you know, and he pretty much knew what he wanted. And he was also very caring and so enjoyable to talk with. He never had that blown up attitude that some stars had. He was a real person. You know, I enjoyed as I told you, I also worked in MacArthur. I was the PT boat commander in the film, and there were many scenes where Gregory Peck and I are out in the ocean, and you know, and I just enjoyed talking to him. It was just great.
Well, he sure had a presence about him that made you want to like him. And I know he was a bad guy, the leader of the outlaw gang in Yellow Sky, but God, he was the hero for everyone watching the film. And did your dad like working with him?
Oh, yes. He kidded before saying, well, you know, he's not my kind of guy. See, you know, Jimmy Cagney was my father's kind of guy.
Well, your father was Wild Bill.
My father was Wild Bill. But I really think he got to like him more than he thought he would. And I think they had a nice friendship when the film was completed.
Richard Widmark as a sinister adventurer. When these two meet, something has to give.
Well, Richard Widmark, he had just come off of being the laughing killer pushing the lady down the stairs.
I know.
Getting an Oscar nomination for that, too.
I was nervous about him as a kid, you know. But within a short period of time, he was one of the nicest guys. I say that completely, all truthfulness, and I did get to know him, and I did use him in my documentary, and so I had time with him, you know, after that, and I just loved the fact that he was such an easy guy to have a conversation with.
He was a fine radio actor before he joined 20th Century Fox, too. He loved doing the radio shows. In fact, everybody that I speak with who's ever done radio drama or radio comedy, they say it was the best. I guess because they could just come in and so casual. They could, come in their bathrobe, but they wouldn't do that. But and just the camaraderie and the relationships that they would build on these radio dramas, where it would be a similar cast of actors each time playing different parts. Good stuff.
Yeah.
How did your dad pick this area, Lone Pine?
Well, I wasn't here for that, but they obviously, the location manager had picked different places, and my father went out and said, I'll do this and that. And, they picked all their spots, and my God, they picked them right. I mean, and it's so easy. No, but they had to build a cabin, there was a lot of things, a corral. They had to do a lot of that sort of construction. But in amongst all of this great landscape, it's just...
Any direction you look, and here's Mount Whitney right behind us. Magic, like magic.
I know, it's just fabulous.
With Yellow Sky and you getting to hang around, do you remember how long the shoot was? Because by being in a location like this, you really don't have to travel a lot, because everything, really any direction you look is a fabulous shot.
Yeah, the real traveling was to go to Death Valley. They had to go out there to shoot those sequences. But everything else was, around this area. And like you say, it's a 15-minute drive to a different location. So that was pretty terrific. And, of course, one of the reasons they picked it.
Yeah. Well, that's why the B-Westerns, the Poverty Row films, they would come out here because it was cheaper for them to shoot everything exterior out here, do the whole movie, rather than like MGM. And you look at those MGM films now from the 30s and the 40s, and they don't hold up as well as some of those Poverty Row films do, because you look at the location, which is so much a part of the character of a Western, especially.
Yes.
So your dad shot a little bit of Oxbow Incident here as well.
He did. They shot the night ride of the posse scene in Oxbow, and a few other scenes, not a lot. Not a lot.
Well, in Yellow Sky, the town scenes, the ghost town, where was that?
See, what they did was they had footage that had been shot at other locations for other pictures, and they just melded it together, and made it like when the Indians... There were no Indians here when they shot this movie, and yet there's a lot of Indians in the final cut. But those Indians were not in Lone Pine. Those Indians were... Some of them were on the 20th Century Fox Western town. They had a Western street and a Western town, and they brought in the Indians to use them there. And then they do what they call a matte shot, and they bring it in, and they cut it in the center section, and the outer piece is this, Lone Pine. And it looks fabulous. I thought it was great. I love to roam around by myself, and look at different things and the rocks. And the studio built this pond, which is an important piece in the movie.
Why is it important?
Well, because they have scenes there, and there's a fight. They're fighting in the pond, and Ann Baxter comes walking down, and they're going to throw her in the pond. I mean, there's a lot of things going on with this pond. So when no one was watching or shooting, I went in my underwear, took off my jeans and jumped in with my underwear just to see what it was like.
Was it cold?
It wasn't cold, because it wasn't big enough with the heat and everything to really cool off at night.
Did they create the pond? No water was here. They had to make it.
They made it. They created the pond. It was dry as a bone in there.
That's the scene one of the scenes in it, where Gregory Peck almost drowns John Russell, isn't it?
Yeah. The studio, 20th Century Fox, they came here, sent their construction crew, and they dammed a certain area here and made this big pond that you see in the film. And it's so fantastic, and you can see it wouldn't take much because there's a lot of high rock areas.
It's not
there,
a large
see?
area, but on film, it looked like it was part of a river.
You know, some of the terrain, of course, the brush has changed the little bit of the look of it. You see, I think this area here is the main part of the pond that we see in the film.
Yes.
It looks like that to me.
It certainly looks like it could be.
But you can still see it.
And then this rock up here is where Ann Baxter was wedged with her rifle. To pick off the bad guys.
Yes.
Protecting the gold.
Yes.
It just, any direction you look, it's just different.
It's just phenomenal. Look at those big rocks up there. Look at that, looks like a big paddle. You know?
Well, climbers have been out here learning how to scale mountains, and they don't allow them to do it anymore because they were defacing so much stuff.
Oh, too bad.
Well, no, it's nice. It's quieter now. There's less people. This Airstream trailer's right here next to us, which is lovely.
So you think the ranch house was there?
This is what Don Kelson told me, who's been coming out here for years, and with Dave Holland, they would take frame grabs and match them
because it could,
with the rocks.
if that cabin was here, you know, then you could have the barn and all that could be here. There's room for it. I mean, some of the shrubbery is grown up.
And the road wasn't here probably either.
Yeah, no road. Wow.
But the rocks don't change.
The rocks don't change.
Now, your dad, how did he get his nickname Wild Bill?
He was a fighter pilot in the First World War. And he was the guy that would go out on the patrol when everyone was leery of going out on a patrol. He would go out. He got the name Wild Bill actually in the war. And then when he came home and got into show business, he kept it. He was tough, you know, but the amazing thing is he could be tough on some of the leading men, and he was. And he had fistfights with some of them. But
he wasn't a big guy either, was he?
No, he was 5'9", 145 pounds. But he could fight. But he was great with the women.
Yeah.
You know, he really cared about the women, and the women loved him.
I know he did a couple of wonderful films with Barbara Stanwyck. And I think they must have enjoyed each other's working relationship and also
she
been
was
friends.
his favorite for years. Oh, yeah. See, my father didn't like the actress that had to be the grande dame. You know, he didn't like that business. And Barbara Stanwyck would get out there and dive into the rocks and, you know, fight and do anything.
And she loved Westerns too.
Yeah.
She really did.
I hadn't seen her. Now, I was on the set when I was a kid. And many years later, she was doing The Big Valley, and they were shooting at some of it at Warner Brothers. And now I'm an actor, and I'm at Warner Brothers. And I remember going over to the set. She was there. They weren't shooting now. They were, you know, preparing. And I didn't want to bother her then, so I stayed away. And they shot some scenes, and then they said, okay, print it. And she got up and happened to walk towards me. So now I thought, okay, so I said, Miss Stanwyck, excuse me a minute. I'm Bill Wellman, Jr. And before I said another word, she grabbed me, hugged me. You know, I loved your father, God damn it. She's talking like that. And I thought, oh my God, isn't this wonderful? You know, and when an actress liked my father, they loved my father.
I have to talk about Wild Boys of the Road a little bit. I know it's not a Western, but talking about women who loved your father, the woman in that film married your father, and it was his 5th or 6th marriage or something?
Yeah, he'd had a couple of marriages, but she was a dancer. She was a Busby Berkeley dancer, and he just fell in love. Simple as that. And before you know it, they were married. And then my father had 7 children with my mother.
And you're number 1.
No, I'm number 2.
Oh,
my
okay.
sister. We're girl, boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl. Now that was a
how
joke.
planning? That's parent.
This is a joke.
Planning Parenthood, right?
My father. People would say, "Well, how did you do this? How did that happen?" He says, "I know how to do it." He always said that to people, and they went, "What?"
That's great. That's great.
I know.
So, are you the only child who got into the business in front of the camera?
No. My sister Pat, my older sister Pat, was in The High and the Mighty, but she has a small part, very small part. And my brother Mike is the little kid that falls asleep in The High and the Mighty in the plane, but he didn't really do any other work in the business. And then my brother Tim did Happy Years in the 50s, and it was about a boys' reform school. Okay, and
a strange title for a boys' reform school.
Yeah, I know. But my brother Tim was in that, and my father liked the fact that my brother Tim liked to fight, and he always was a good fighter, and he boxed in college and everything like that. My sister Kitty was a dancer and became a professional dancer, and she danced on television shows. And my sister Sissy, who did more acting and still is an actress, she did the most acting of my brothers or sisters.
Your dad's other location for a classic Western is Kanab, where he shot Buffalo Bill. And a wonderful visual feast, a color movie with Joel McCrea, just terrific looking. Another wonderful Western that another favorite of mine is Westward the Women with Robert Taylor. Now, what a cool guy he was. He loved being outside. And
he and my father were just like this. I mean, and my father loved that movie. That was, when people ask him about his favorite movies, that's one of his, let's say, 10 best.
Well, Women's Lib, way ahead of Women's Lib on that.
But he loved those women. They were tough.
Yeah.
You know.
Who was that big one?
No, Hope Emerson.
Yes. Oh, my God.
He loved Hope Emerson, too. That's what, well, first of all, that's the story. Those women that came across the country in
they had to be
frickin' wagons and stuff like that, and having Indian attacks and everything, the cholera and, everything that they went through was just fantastic. And they could shoot, they could shoot rifles and pistols, and you didn't fool with those women, I'm telling you.
Isn't it? It's unusual for an MGM movie to be that good of a Western, I think, and it's because of your dad.
My dad had done Across the Wide Missouri, which was very successful. But it had some problems.
And it's short. That movie is like 80 minutes or something, and it's all the location work and the Grand Tetons. It looked wonderful.
Yeah, well, they were in Colorado. All Dad's kids were in Durango, where they shot most of it around there. And God, that's beautiful country. Oh my God.
Yeah.
No, I did a few mistakes in my father's movies. There was a scene in The Gallant Journey where they had a earthquake. And I was just there, and I had jeans and whatever shirt and I'm just watching everything. And they got all these people running around this earthquake, and I thought, I'm going to run around with those people. Nobody will know. And I ran in there, and I was running around with those people, and no one knew. But when they looked at the rushes, I remember my father coming home one time and said, "Bill, did you get into that crowd? Because somebody picked out your shirt was not anything like the shirts of the other people from the 1930s or whatever it was supposed to be." And I said, "Yeah, Dad, I'm sorry." He said, "Don't ever do that."
Yeah.
And that was a stupid thing to do. But I thought, who's going to see me with, there's 100 people running around.
I'll blend right in.
How could it? Somebody,
Except I've got a yellow T-shirt on and everybody's dressed up in 1880s.
Well, some separation at some point in time of the crowd, and there's me in the middle or something like, I don't know what happened.
Oh, man.
But, you know,
oh, man.
I did make a couple of mistakes. The Wallace Beery, This Man's Navy, they have a scene, it's a blimp picture, and they have a scene where they have Japanese soldiers running, you know, coming through the like jungle type vegetation. And again, God knows what the hell I was thinking. I thought, well, I'm just going to come through that. I saw they rehearsed. And I thought, I'll get in with the Japanese soldiers and lean down because the grass is real tall and no one will see me. And I'll do that. And I went through, but the assistant director said, cut, Bill. And my father says, what are you cutting for? Well, your son is right there. Oh, geez.
Just learning the business, Dan.
And I did not get to go on any more locations on that picture.
Wow.
And I had to apologize to Beat the Band, and it was totally ridiculous for me to do that.
Yep. Here in Lone Pine, with these wonderful locations, Errol Flynn shot here, Tyrone Power, Gail Russell, all the Randolph Scott films. What do you think about those Bud Bedecker, Randolph Scott movies?
I love them. Here? I think they're just great. I think the whole idea of Lone Pine and the look brought so many people here, and they looked around and they were going to take advantage of what there is. And it's absolutely fantastic.
I want to thank you for coming out here and sitting in the sun in this majestic area here.
It's well worth it. I love it, Rob, really.
Well, I always like hearing your stories, Bill. You're a good guy, and don't get into any trouble, okay?
I promise I'll try not to.
Okay, thanks for being here.
All right, take care.